I'm down on my luck, she's turning a page. I'm falling in love, she's running away. Am I calling a bluff or causing her pain? Pray I get my answer tonight.
442, we got a suspect on the loose. The kid's trying to fight people. Yeah, we're gonna need someone to go and check it out. Copy that.
Pay you by the minute just to visit through the back door. We got a lot to figure out. I don't wanna be another city in your passport. Why you ain't border in the drought? Talk back more. I prefer the real over the act. You're burning every page I try to craft more. And we keep it cool enough to last. Or will we catch another moment just to let it pass? I'm down on my luck, she's turning a page. I'm falling in love, she's running away. Am I calling a bluff or causing her pain? Pray I get my answer tonight. Moonlight mixes well in her eyes. Seems like we do this every time. My type, she could eat me alive. Oh, you got an appetite.
Hey, the suspect is not alone and highly dangerous. We're gonna need more men on site.
Cause I think I lost it. Coughing up truth to ease the toxin. Self-obsessed, I miss how you stopped it. Paid my dues to move the mess. But it's over now, I guess. Take my ties, embezzlement. Carry crosses, filled cement. Tried my best, but I can't bend. I'd rather you break me again. I'm down on my luck, she's turning a page. I'm falling in love, she's running away. Am I calling a bluff or causing her pain? Pray I get my answer tonight. Moonlight mixes well in her eyes. Seems like we do this every time. My type, she could eat me alive. Oh, you got an appetite.
We got a man.
Hello, all you BC WrestlePod nerds out there, and welcome to the second day in a row of Grapple Gurus, your BC WrestlePod PPV and PLE review show. I am one of your hosts tonight, Mikey, and joined with me this evening, first and foremost, you can find this man on the Dynamite reviews and on the newly established WWE combo review starting this upcoming week. But the Professor John is in the building. I had missed you. I am happy that you are here tonight, my friend.
Hi, everybody. We're going to talk about something completely different than anything else that we've been watching for the last however long. Andrew's turned us onto this new cult of GCW, which is kind of amazing. We'll discuss more in the nuances of this thing and how it looked and what we noticed. But before we dive in, this brought me back to being like 13, 14, 15 and watching crazy Pancrase and psycho MMA K1 stuff in the middle of the night. It just had that same feel to it. So I'm really excited to get to talk about this.
I am super excited too. But last but certainly not least, And new for us here, leading us in our discussions tonight, is the said cult leader of GCW here on the PC WrestlePod.
Andrew, you've always wanted to be a cult leader, and then
I-
you've done it.
I gotta update my title on the card here for.
Oh my gosh. But Mr. A to Z himself, who is on the ROH and TNA reviews, is going to lead us through Bloodsport, but Andrew is in the house. I'm super excited for this. This is going to be good.
Yeah, I'm excited to get you all, get your toes dipped in the pool of GCW, and
That's the
hopefully-
ritual, right? You dip your
Yeah.
toes in
Yeah.
to this pool of whatever it is, and then
Yeah.
you know.
the first taste is always free, and you
Oh,
get your
man.
hooked.
God.
I love it so much. But before we get started, so as we mentioned, we will be talking about GCW. Well, get presented by GCW, but this is Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 11. I can read my Roman numerals, I promise.
My son cannot.
Bloodsport XI.
My son's adorable. He cannot, and there's plenty of video games where that's the title or the chapter or whatever. So he is so mad and confused sometimes. It's
I
great.
love it so much.
I mean, if I'm honest, wrestling helped me learn Roman numerals. So yeah.
Honestly,
Wrestling taught Kevin Owens English. Like, wrestling can do amazing things.
for reals. So we are going to be covering Bloodsport 11 tonight. Before I hand it off to Andrew to kind of lead us through everything tonight, just to let you know, remember, we are here to talk about opinions. So we're just going to put this up
There
here for
it
now.
is. There it is.
This one should not be as spicy as yesterday's review was, but you never know. So remember, be respectful in the comments and you will not get blocked. Otherwise, you will be booted. You lose. Good day, sir. That is a wrap. Finito. Dunzo. Capiche? All right, now that we've got that out the way.
I know.
I'm
I
going
think I saw that thing like 3 or 4 times yesterday.
Mikey likes to do that right before he drops something spicy because it's sort of this awkward disclaimer of like, I'm gonna say this, hang on, blink, and then that whole disclaimer shows up.
That and my memes during these reviews are so much fun.
Oh, that's right. So we have meme collection tonight.
No, because this is actually good.
Okay, good. Well, that's fair. Yeah, save the memes for when we need them. Yeah.
So I am done kind of doing all the housekeeping. So I'm going to tag out and I'm going to tag in Andrew in. So Andrew, the floor is yours. Let's do this.
Awesome. So yeah, like Mikey said, we're going to talk about Bloodsport 11 here. For those of that are just kind of new to this and might have joined us for the watch along. This was different. I'm excited for you all to be joining GCW. Watching the product that they produce.
Yeah.
I'm really excited also to get a chance for you all to watch a traditional GCW card because those are a whole other world of crazy. But Bloodsport is such a unique beast that I was happy that we got to start with this too, where as you all saw, the rules were much more MMA style rules mixed with professional wrestling. And as someone, I used to watch a lot of MMA with Crossweight, and we've come from that world, and so to see how they mix it really well for professional wrestling, I think it was a good experience.
There's something really cool about, for anyone who's sparred or did martial arts sparring and stuff like that, there's this interesting combination of sparring and testing each other, but also calling the spots or knowing the spots and where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about that as we go. As I was rewatching it, there's some moments where I was like, oh, they're just going at each other. And these moments where it's like, I could have ended you, but I chose not to. And then the receipts we get are fantastic.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
We're on our way
specifically
towards
there.
a few of these, but yeah, the palm strikes
Mhm.
are just, they're not pulling those. Like some of those, I mean, they're not boxing the ears or anything, but they're connecting with some shots.
So we're going to do it a little differently. I gave my fellow hosts a heads up here. We're going to follow along. If any of you have seen my report cards that I do for GCW, you see I grade them much like assignments. So
You
we're
grade
going to
hard too. You're tough.
I always feel like I'm being too tough, and then I see the end grade, and I'm like, no, that's pretty fair.
You're that teacher, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not that hard. Someone still got an A. I'm fine.
And I try to grade in a bubble too because I try to not compare promotions. But so we will be doing grades tonight for the show overall. I've given them the grading criteria. So some of the stuff we'll be talking about will be the storytelling and the pacing that we saw, the audience investment and engagement that we saw from the event and the performers, as well as the in-ring execution and production overall. So that'll give you an idea of how we're going to be grading the event. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump into Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 11.
Yay!
So we started off with Brian Johnson versus, I had to check his name multiple times. It's Hedy Kiraway. So this was our first match of the night. And I have seen Brian Johnson, also the Mecca, in other GCW events, but I've not seen Kiraway very often. So this was I thought it was a good way to start it off.
Sure.
Mikey, for you, how was this as your first Bloodsport match, watching it live as it happened?
So I'm going to say something similar that I said when we started doing the CMLL reviews, because I've been around professional wrestling for a couple of years now, but this is really my first introduction to the wrestling mixed with the actual combat sports aspect of it. So unbeknownst to our audience, Andrew and Professor here have history to watching like UFC and MMA and all that kind of stuff. That is not the world that I dived into when I was a wee young lad.
It used to be awesome.
Yeah.
And there's still some pockets that are really cool, but now it's turned into
a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole
that we can
other,
talk about.
yeah.
Ooh. So for me, I was super excited because not only did I get to hang with my, Cali crew here tonight while we were watching it, but I was super excited to see how the combative sport elements would mix in with the professional wrestling that I know. So it took me a little bit to get used to, but immediately once this match started, I was like, oh, if this is what we're getting tonight, I am super excited and I cannot wait. There's such a, I don't know if finesse is the correct word when it comes to it, but the finesse and the precision that a lot of these folks had to do, specifically in this match, I'm like, all right, feel each other out, strike when you can. Also, this is professional wrestling, so do some crazy stuff with it.
Sure.
For an opener match, I thought this was really, really fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And as we kept going on, I'll have more to say because there are certain matches I was like, oh my God, yes. But I thought this was a fun opener.
Nice. And Crossway, how did you feel about this as far as, having more of that MMA kind of background? Did this feel like a good opener? Did this feel like it started the night off in a believable way in this world of professional wrestling, bringing in more combat style stuff?
Yeah, I love it. And I said this on the live stream too. There's this sense of that kayfabe illusion, and I bought it. I was like, oh, are they actually, oh no, this can't be, but they're actually, oh, but this can't be, but they're throwing, but they can't, right? And it wasn't until later on where there were some submissions where I was like, oh, if he wanted to end his career, he would. He's not choosing. Oh, I see. So what's fascinating about this first match and other matches as we're going on, being brand new to GCW, and we see this in the other promotions, which I'm not going to invoke here because we don't need to. There's in other promotions where there tends to be a hesitation or where am I? Or, oh yeah, that's right. When they get lost in the script, that never happened this whole night. And this first match is a great example because if I don't know where I am or where we're going, I'm just going to do a single leg, or I'm going to pull guard and do this and this. I'm going to go back to the wrestling, back to the martial arts, and let that sort of be the transition into the next thing, into the next thing, into the next thing. So good. And this was one of my running themes of the night, and I think I said this on the live stream too, was these athletes at GCW are not steroid, massive bodybuilder types. These are athletic build folks. They're huge and they're in great shape, but they don't look, if I'm going to say it, they don't look fake. They don't look bloated or unreal. I don't look at them and go, wow, the human body, confusing, right? I look at them and go, oh, you're just an athlete. Someone who watched MMA and K1 and kickboxing and other things. Oh, those are kickboxers. Those aren't, dudes from Venice Beach throwing people through tables. Those are folks that can move. They can do these things. They're doing They're doing duck walks for anyone who's taken wrestling class. Like, they're doing stuff that's like, oh my God, they're freaking athletes in the middle of this ring. So I love that they're not leaning on, and maybe there's other GCWs, and I know we're in Bloodsport, but we didn't lean on promos necessarily. We didn't lean on too much get on the mic and cut a promo thing. This was go fight. I'm all, from the first match of this, I'm excited.
Well, and I will say, as you will get a chance to watch more GCW things, there's a variety of looks of wrestlers that we get in GCW. You get some crazy in shape athletes, and you get people who look like they picked someone out of the audience.
There's a few tonight we'll talk about that just look like, I'm just a normal guy. It's like, nope, no, you're not.
and I'm glad you brought this up too. Is I like the way the GCW paces their shows between each match. We got a little promo and some information that either built up the matches to come or like the main event. We did start the night off with a nice little promo from Shayna Baszler, who was in the main event. That kind of tied in at the end of the show that we'll talk about when we get there. But I liked that you could hear the passion and you could see kind of the respect already from the beginning of that as we went into this.
And this was a great match as an intro to GCW, someone who'd never seen it before. I love that they were obviously feuding in some way. There's the not handshake moment at the end, which kind of told me a story there, which they didn't have to build. What really earned it was Mecca tapping. And I actually was like, oh, he's actually tapping because he has to tap. It didn't feel like in other promotions where it's like, oh, let me think about it. Oh no, I have to tap. Right? This was legit. Like, don't break my neck. I have to do a thing. It just, it's refreshing to see stuff like that.
So we move on to our second match of the night, which was the first match that actually brought over a name from another promotion, another bigger promotion. And we got the GCW premiere of Julius Creed taking on Matt Makowski. Makowski is a freaking flyer in GCW, and Julius Creed, I'm sure as Mikey is very familiar with the Creed brothers. We got to see them both debut here. So Mikey, we'll go to you first. What did you think about seeing Julius Creed here in Bloodsport, and did you feel like there was a difference of seeing him here in GCW versus how he's kind of presented and the character he portrays in other places?
So, going into this, once I saw that Julius was going to be on here, I immediately got excited because, for those of you who don't know, Julius actually has a collegiate wrestling background.
Oh, so he looks it.
Yeah, so him and Brutus both have wrestling backgrounds, obviously in different divisions, but what I loved about this match in particular. Well, first and foremost, Makowski, I was just like, oh, dang, like, I'm going to have to go look up more stuff with him because, again, this whole entire pay-per-view, if we even want to call it that, just like this show made me love. I was like, all right, I got to be paying attention to these folks. Let me go see if they have social media so I can follow them and witness crazy things. But with Julius specifically, it was nice for him to be more grounded in this match and use more of his, collegiate wrestling background. Because in NXT and now on the main roster on Raw, we still get those glimpses and moments of more Matt-style wrestling. But then, because his brother and, are in a tag team, they also do a lot more aerial, combat. Again, Julius is your power base. He'll pick people up, do power slams, jump off ropes. Brutus, when we talk about him later, he's your high flyer because he'll do cannonballs on people, which is kind of crazy, like from the top rope. But it was really nice to see Julius kind of tap into that power-based Matt Styler wrestler more, because this was more grounded, more, power slam. Like, he looked great in this match, and I kind of want him to continue that way. And I hope that WWE will allow Julius and Brutus, when we talk about him later, if they choose to be more grounded when it comes to that, especially now that Julius and Brutus are teamed up with Chad, who is like the pinnacle example of what it comes to Matt wrestling. By the way, GCW, if you can we get Chad Gable on here, please? Like, I would die. It would be fantastic.
My God, Chad Gable here would just wreck house.
Perk Angle 2.0, but I thought honestly this was probably in my top 3 matches of the evening. I was really impressed with Julius.
Yeah.
This was a fun match.
Yeah, I thought this was great. I'm actually not super familiar with Julius Creed, so I thought this was a fun way to introduce him to people not familiar with him.
Sure.
And so, Crossway, how did you feel about this being, with Mikowski, you saw it with his gear and kind of his style. He definitely went for more of the striking style, so we kind of had the traditional MMA setup of striker versus grappler. And how do you think they kind of executed all that?
I'm not to sound like an old person, but this definitely had a Boss Root and Frank Shamrock 1996 look to it, right? It was just like, oh wow. Yeah, he's throwing some great palm strikes in the middle of this, which you're catching. What's really funny, and not to keep jumping on Creed because we should talk about Matt as well. Julius Creed is obviously trying not to kill Matt Mikowski a few of these times. He does a double leg at the top of this thing. He must travel about 14 feet. He does boom, 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 boom. It's over. He's hitting him behind the ear with palm strikes at one point, just kind of tapping him. And Mikowski is staying in the phone booth. He's throwing some leg kicks and some knees in the middle of that too. Creed's just he checks in with him once or twice, like, okay, we're going up. And then just, wow, does these massive things. I love that striker versus wrestler stuff. You and I have talked about that at length for years now. I think it's just to drop cliche buttons. Styles make fights, and these are 2 totally different styles. Matt's trying not to die, being on the bottom because his dude's rolling him everywhere. Great transitions in this. There's a little bit of jiu-jitsu here at the end as I'm watching the playback of this. There's some pulling guard and some moments of like, oh, look at you butt scooting around here. I see you. Okay. But what's great is this sort of language of combat sports that these two leaned on, where it was sort of, if you know this language or you've seen it, you're like, oh, this thing, that thing, this thing. Oh my gosh. There's a great exchange here in the middle where they just sort of takedown to takedown, which is really cool to watch too. And then Creed just tossing him like a trash can. This was brutal. And I was during the stream, I was calling him Baby Gunther because I was like, look at the build on that guy. He's just tall and lanky and just looks like he has fought or can fight. This is a blast.
So we end this match with a technical knockout from Julius Creed to Matt Mikowski, which, I thought was a brutal grappling knockout. He suplexed him and then hit a basement clothesline to put him away. Yeah. And I for myself, I love the way this ended because you saw him go to follow up with the ground and pound, and the ref called it. So yeah, this definitely was one of my top matches of the night too. Yeah. And like I said, as someone who's not super familiar with Julius Creed, I was very impressed with him.
I'll say that this, and Andrew know exactly what I'm talking about. Mikey, we'll send you some movies. When MMA was in movies from like 1997 to 2007, it kind of looked like this, right? There's this idea of like, it's got to be flashy though. There's that, I'm not going to name the names of those movies, but where they tried to make it look like MMA, but they made it look like pro wrestling. And I swear to God, I've seen that clothesline thing before. But that was fantastic.
So we move on to our third match of the night, which followed suit with this, with bringing in some more performers from other areas. Mikey and I's neck of the woods. We got 2 TNA stars here. We got one half of the TNA Knockouts tag team champions, Masha Slamovich, who is also a GCW champion. She holds the JCW championship belt against a former Knockouts tag team champion, who actually is one of the people that Masha beat for the title, Jody Threat. So normally I would go to Mikey for this, but I actually want to change it up and crossword. So I don't know how familiar you are with Masha Slamovich and Jody Threat, but if you're not too familiar with them, what did you think about your first foray into these two, especially in Bloodsport?
I know the names. I know that Jody looks like a roller derby champion, and Masha looks like someone I used to know when I hung out at malls a lot in Hot Topics. Fantastic. The women always bring it. And I have yet to be unimpressed by a women's match on a big card, right? Like when I say this on some of the other reviews, and I'm just going to repeat myself because it's true, the women got to work twice as hard and be twice as good. and they absolutely did it here. The transitions here and some of the groundwork that they were doing. I don't know if they do that normally in TNA, or if TNA is a little bit more of the kayfabe kind of sort of back and forth. Masha does this back kimura into a suplex thing, which if that's off a little, you break someone's arm in 4 places. But Jody was right there for it. And then she transitions into armbar. There's like 3 or 4 armbar transitions in the first 30, 40 seconds of this. Like, it blows my mind. And they're fantastic. They're selling all these things. There's a shot later on in this match. I'm trying to find it. I think Masha hits Jody with something really hard, and we all heard it. And was one of the first ooh of the night that we all had, where we were like, that was mean. But I can't quite remember where that was. This made me... I'm going to say this. I say this off and on a lot. This makes me want to watch TNA. Like,
you absolutely should.
But
Yes.
I'm already in so many cults now. I don't know if I can join anymore. I was going to join the ROH one, and then you all said, don't drink this Kool-Aid anymore. It's gone bad. And now you got me in this cult, and now there's a TNA thing going.
ROH aside, just TNA. You can trust TNA.
I would be hard pressed. Honestly, TNA, it would actually, I feel like would be up your alley because, it's on a smaller scale. It's more like indie, grimy feel like, because most of the spaces there are very small.
I think stuff that's in barns and in abandoned YMCAs and decrepit hospitals.
Yeah. Mikey. The other thing I think that would gravitate you to at least give TNA a try too is that of all the promotions that we review, TNA leans heavily into a lot of camp, and it works. Like, we're about to have a whole entire wedding this week between a Frankenstein monster and Steph DeLander. Like, honestly, it's about to be on and popping.
I'm excited. That maybe I do got to watch more of that. I just rediscovered on the playback the ooh moment was Jody actually putting a boot to Masha's face about halfway through this match. So good. Which, when you look at the replay, it was like, oh, you've killed her. And then a few minutes later, Jody hits Masha too hard, bam, and like touches her head, like, oh, I'm sorry, I hit you too hard. Okay, and then they go back into it again. But man.
Well, so I think one of the things that this match benefited from is that Masha and Jody have worked together so much in TNA. They've worked off and on as tag teams against each other, singles matches, all that kind of stuff, both as part of the Militia and MK Ultra. So to that, Mikey, being our longest reigning TNA correspondent, what did you think about seeing these two finally getting to go one-on-one again, and in this kind of scenario?
To kind of keep it brief, and to echo what I say all the time on the TNA, Jody has risen through the ranks because she's been on the roster for a little bit now, but it wasn't until, Hard to Kill where we started to see her emerge into this top spot in the Knockouts tag division with Danny Luna, who's off. I need to see, by the way, side note, I want to see Danny in here if she's able to, because that girl will be throwing girls left and right. So I'm familiar with Jody's work on the independents. She has this more, as Crossway, you said, like, she looks like a roller derby champion. And honestly, that's her whole aesthetic. And that's kind of her fight style. She's very brawler-esque, which is super fantastic. But when I tell you, outside of maybe Athena and ROH and Jordan Grace and TNA, Masha Slamovich is probably like in my top of female wrestlers, just period, across the board. Yeah. And this is just her mat style of wrestling, because her finisher, Crossway, is like one of the most devastating thing. And because she's Russian, we call it the snowplow, but literally it looks like she's dropping girls on heads when she does it. It's so fantastic. And I think what benefits this and what made me enjoy this match more is the fact, because they are used to working with each other in TNA, going back and forth in tag team and in singles action. So they are familiar with their styles. But
did you say MK Ultra was their faction?
So let me break this down a little bit.
Oh no, Mikey, we're gonna be here for hours, Mikey.
No, it's really quickly. So Masha this year has been in 2 different tag teams. When she started the year, she was with another wrestler called Killer Kelly, who is also fantastic, and they were called MK Ultra.
Okay.
So, but Killer Kelly took some time off, and so Now she's paired up with another wrestler in TNA. Her name is Alicia Edwards. And so we call them the Militia because Masha, Alicia combined their names. Haha, it's funny.
I see what you did there.
But Masha
right.
has held this knockout tag team championship for pretty much the majority of 2024.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, the end of 2023 too.
So yeah, this match was a blast to watch and rewatch here. I love Jody's selling the TKO. I think this was the first time we saw it the night. We're sort of TKO and she can kind of hardly stand. She's holding her head, like a very different sell than you see in other promotions. It's like, oh yeah, she's physically been destroyed. Wild. Like I'm all by this point, as you see in the live stream, I'm like, I'm in. What do you want to do? What else you have for me?
Well, and I will say to these two performers too, Masha Slamovich is 26 years old.
Really?
She made her pro debut in 2016. Jody Threat's 35. She made her pro debut in 2017. So, Jody Threat's 9 years older. She's only been wrestling for a short period of time, respectively, compared to a lot of other people. And Masha, I forget how young Masha is because she's so good. She still has so much of her career to go. They both do if they want to.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah, I thought this was a great one. We had Masha Slamovich defeat Jody by technical knockout, which, it makes sense, but it was a good ending for me for the end of this fight.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we move on to our next match, which had another familiar face to both WWE, well, I should say NXT and TNA audiences, is Charlie Dempsey, William Regal Jr., and facing Royce Isaacs. So yeah, Mikey, what did you think? What did you think about? You now have seen Charlie Dempsey, I would say probably at least within a month, wrestle in 3 different promotions that we're watching. What did you think of seeing him here in this promotion?
So, Andrew has his match of the night, and his match of the night was close to being mine. But once I thought about this, for me personally, as my first Bloodsport, this was my match of the night. And I think it's because looking at Charlie Dempsey, first of all, well, actually, let me talk about Royce Isaacs a little bit. I had no knowledge of who Royce Isaac was, but I have immediately become a fan after this match. I was like, all right, well, let me go follow him on social media. Also, call me. But I thought this was a really good match. Royce Isaacs did a lot, but in regards to Charlie Dempsey, Andrew, you are correct. Within the last, not even month, I want to say like the last 2 weeks, we have seen him here in GCW. He was at the Slammiversary pay-per-view for TNA not too long ago. And then he's one of the few people who is consistently on NXT television. Shoot, he was on the Great American Bash tonight in the corner of Tavion during the Heritage Cup match.
Nice.
What made this my match of the night was not just, the groundwork that they put in for this in terms of all the submission holds, but just how flexible and creative both men in this match were when it was, reversing or getting out of submissions and things like that. Specifically, Charlie Dempsey bending the laws of all gravity, like contorting his body in ways that I did not know. And Crosswave, you said this during our watch along, and I can't unsee it now. The expressions that Charlie Dempsey had throughout this match definitely is throwing shades of, oh my God, this is William Regal Jr. right here, because he has the same mannerisms as his dad.
But that same lip snarl when he's stressed, things like, oh my God, there he is.
I was like, there it is. There's the Regal bloodline in this one. I thought this was a fantastic match, and it's because of how creative they got with their submissions and reversals and how they got out of things too, which kind of pushed it a little bit over the edge as my match of the night. But I thought both men did fantastic. This was such a fantastic match, and it was a really good spectacle.
And I should say that this is a kind of a cross-promotion match here, too, because Royce Isaacs also regularly appears in New Japan Wrestling, too. So GCW is pulling people from all over the world.
That's right.
And, that's what I think what makes the Bloodsport card specifically, really exciting. But, Crossway, I don't think you've seen much of Charlie Dempsey, if anything. because you're one of the few people who doesn't cover one of the things that he's showing up in. But I know, being, you're having your history with professional wrestling, you are very familiar with his father. What did
Oh,
you
yeah.
think about this match itself, and what did you think about your first kind of introduction into Charlie Dempsey?
I love the fact that this match is such a good catch match. Like, you could put this 60s, 70s, 80s international anything and it would fit right in, right? There's something beautiful about this British style that we don't see, that blend of amateur and sort of pseudo submission, this thing to the next thing to the next thing. And the first half of this is absolutely amazing. He definitely has that sort of sell and character poise that his dad has. And I mentioned this in the live, I'm kind of shocked that he hasn't popped or pushed more. You could tell me that off if he has or hasn't, or what hasn't worked. I know his dad in certain realms is a controversial figure. Fine, I understand that too. I know some of those stories. Him and Royce were great together. Like, this was a lot of fun to watch. They call one or two spots on the fly. You can kind of see him trying not to show it on the camera. The camera's cut here quickly. But yeah, they hold this Kimura section for like 2 minutes, and it was still captivating. Like, you're still watching this 30, 40 seconds thing of him in this Americana. He hasn't been the thing, and he's holding him there, and we're still fascinated by it. And that's the simplest of these things was so clean. This was great to watch. I didn't pick a match of the night. I probably should have. This is one of them for sure. I have a sentimental pick, which Andrew probably already knows now that I've said that. Just because I'm a nerd and I'm old. This is a blast. I'm glad that Isaacs is in New Japan. That makes total sense to me now watching this. Like, oh yeah, you look like a New Japan guy. Just there's a style and presence and poise and polish that you have doing that stuff. So fantastic. So his name's Dempsey, so he doesn't have the regal name, so he can kind of earn his own way, right?
Right.
Yeah, basically. So then that way, yeah, it's just, I mean, and there's a lot of, we've got a few people in NXT and stuff like that that have not taken their family name
Right.
for various reasons.
Sure.
So I think that's a big part of it. But I would say, and Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, especially since you see him a lot more, I feel like Charlie Dempsey is in the beginning of his acceleration in his career, because from what I've seen from him, I saw him a bit in NXT, but when I saw him come over to TNA, I was incredibly impressed with just even the growth that I've seen in that point.
No, and I think, and to be completely honest, I think Charlie has always had that technical wise, and his matches have always been fantastic. Even when he was on, Level Up for NXT, and the matches he would have there are fantastic. I think what kind of halted his momentum is when he took over for No Quarter Catch Crew, and then his character got weird because he was trying to emulate Tony D'Angelo, who is like the mafia character in NXT. Yeah, it's a whole thing. Like, there's a deep dive we can do on this. But within recent stuff, now that it's just Charlie, Miles, and Tavion kind of, taking Damon's spot in this, they've gotten more serious. And it kind of showed tonight, because now Charlie is more serious when it comes to how he presents the group, and his character, I think, is finally getting there. It's kind of the same thing that I've seen in a lot of the British wrestlers that come over to WWE, because Pete Dunne had the same problem. Finn had the same problem when it comes to translating to the US audiences. But I think with Charlie specifically, with TNA, with this, and then what I've been seeing on NXT, I honestly think that we're going to start for the remainder of 2024. I think he's going to get a momentum and kind of start his upward trajectory, because I would love to see Charlie at one point, if it's meant to be, hold the North American Championship or even the NXT Championship once we get there. But now that we've gone through the growing pains, I think if Charlie's presented like we saw tonight here in GC in Bloodsport, I think that he's going to get to the level of his dad and maybe even, surpass that.
Could you imagine him and Drew McIntyre?
Listen,
or him and
all
any
the
of those
European
UK guys. Like,
all
look
the
at
European wrestlers. I need him versus Pete Dunne.
Pete
I
Dunne
need
would
him
be
versus
amazing.
Tyler Bate. I need
him and Finn would be ridiculous. Him and Tyler would be incredible, right?
him versus
Just
Drew.
those back bends. He holds
But
every single one of them.
Eventually,
clean.
when Charlie kind of gets to main roster, if he goes to main roster, Charlie versus Gunther is like my all-time dream match. Or even Charlie versus Ilya would be fantastic.
Ooh,
Yeah, because we didn't get to see them in NXT really.
We were robbed.
Well, and I have to say credit to GCW for this. We saw this match come to an end with Charlie Dempsey actually getting submitted by Royce Isaacs, which I appreciate the fact that it wasn't like we sometimes get when we have crossovers and people try to protect their own people and they insist on things. It was nice to see it felt kind of like this veteran or, this older competitor was kind of like, he caught him. And, I think that's what makes it feel like, kind of like you were talking about, the interest in moves being held and fighting for position, because that's what makes it feel more like actual combat sports.
I'm so glad you said it that way. He caught him.
Yeah.
He caught, and they sold it like he caught him, and Charlie respected him like he caught him. You're exactly right.
And speaking of getting caught, we move on to our next match. Mike Bailey,
oh my god,
also of TNA fame, the current TNA X Division champion and likely third-time X Division Star of the Year in TNA, I would assume. Mike Bailey taking on Akira. This was a match I was looking forward to since it was announced. I know Mikey is always excited when we get to see Mike Bailey perform. I think this is another one, Crossway, that you are not super familiar with either of these performers. This is one of those ones where I really want you to see more Mike Bailey. I'll start sending you some videos,
please.
We
were talking about. So you were telling me there's a Bailey Ospreay match, which sounds incredible.
Last year, Mike Bailey had TNA's best match of 2023, and that was him versus Will Ospreay at Bound for Glory pay-per-view. And then in 2022, Mike Bailey also had match of the year because he had a 1 hour long match with the TNA world champion at the time, Josh Alexander. If you look up pictures of him, this is a massive mountain of a man too. And he has been voted X Division Star of the Year in 2022 and 2023. And me personally, he is on my Mount Rushmore of, like, if I were to suggest people to look up, Mike Bailey's on my Mount Rushmore for that, make up my zeitgeist, if you will, of wrestling.
That's huge. Yeah.
And so
I did not know. I didn't know what to expect at all from either of these two. Mike Bailey has the mullet I wanted back in '92. Kira looks like just a bad guy from a Mad Max movie. Like, it's just, these are action figures, And again, so back to, I said this on the live too. This was my kayfabe broken moment. We get into this match. There's a little bit of this BJJ posturing. They're throwing some hard shots. They're obviously in the moment. Eventually, we get to the edge of the ring. Akira headbutts him 2 or 3 times, and now there's blood everywhere. And I'm not quite sure who did what first. Akira does that slide tackle into Bailey's face, and Bailey is obviously upset. So I don't know who started this or who caused what, but I think Akira selling it like I'm a madman. Bailey decided to put him in his place and just throws this beautiful kick to his face and doesn't. Akira can't even. Sorry, I just watched it. Oh, it's so good. Just this front kick doesn't even. His hand is up. He kicks through his hand and knocks Akira out. And he has a little nod there where he's like, but he's not there. I'm blown away by this match. I feel like this should have been 15 minutes. We got 4.
Well,
but
Andrew,
it was so captivating to me.
It was so good. Andrew, you talked about, Akira getting caught, getting caught up in this match. And that, if, using my video game terms here, the fatality that was Speedball Mike Bailey's kick
Finish him.
Like, here's the thing. So when we see Mike Bailey use these kicks in TNA, obviously they're more wrestling based. Like, he does the multiple kicks to the ribs and kind of is like doesn't put a lot of power behind it unless he's going up against an opponent. He knows how to take it. This was a straight shot to the face. Be like, let's end this quickly because you done make me mad, and bam. Not just the impact too, but Mike Bailey's form, which is something I never thought I'd say about a professional wrestling event, but the form in which he angled that kick and just, the power behind it. And even in the glimpse moment when he made contact with Akira with that kick too, for the couple of milliseconds, I saw that flick of the, foot. I'm just like, oh, that.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm familiar with this as somebody. I used to do a lot. I did karate and judo when I was younger. And
Mikey, you're holding out on us. You make it sound like you don't know any of these things. Come on.
Well, because I also like to study the kinetics of wrestling too. And what I know is from my younger years too, when you do a kick, you don't have to swing the whole leg because that's actually how you hurt yourself upon impact.
Yes.
But just like, the tip of a baseball bat that has the most force, the flick of the kick is what really gets the impact when you mix it with the motion. And just Mike Bailey did amazing when it came to that. So that is just my science nerding out for this episode.
You're absolutely right. And I'm glad you said that. And Andrew will understand this because Andrew's sparring every weekend. You should see his knees. The way he throws that kick, he could kill him. Right? Akira's wide open. It's like, go ahead, do whatever you want. He could take a step in. He could double up. He could do all kinds of things. What he does is sort of a sparring, hey, I'm going to tap you and let you know this is open thing. He just does it a little bit harder to send a message and just gets full extended, pure Batma, if you will, bam, and clips him with it. And in rewatching this, I'm like, he could have killed him. Like, he could have done 10 other things and really hurt him. But he was controlled enough and such a good martial artist to go middle of the road. I'm going to send you a message, and I'm going to pseudo knock you out, and I'm going to sell this at the same time. Like, that's really impressive, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like what we got at the end of this was exactly what you see if you watch like highlight knockouts in like UFC video games. Like when you get those, like, you're fighting and you just hit that beautiful kick that like seems like you can mostly only see in video games in the rare occasion in actual combat sports. And Mike Bailey is such an interesting figure too, because he's one of the most unassuming people. Just generally seems like such a nice person, super like just
good,
like happy guy, and but then comes out and does stuff like this, and it's just it's so entertaining.
You don't have a mullet like that and you're a normal guy. You don't.
But in a weird way too, and Andrew probably can attest to this when we watch Bailey and TNA 2, it's because of that unassumingness aura that he initially gives off, where I think that's where he's the most deadly, is because again, I'm a nerd here, so I'm gonna pull anime. It's kind of like Gon and Hunter x Hunter. Like, most enemies are like, oh, he's a little kid, what's he gonna do? But then as soon as the fight gets real, that aura just kicks in and it overpowers the enemy too. It's so good.
Well, it's Satyama, right? It's sort of you're just some bald dude, and then he's One Punch Man.
I will say, I think it is because when you see Mike Bailey in there, they're not like super angry, serious, like like you see for a lot of performers, and then they make this change, and you see them get mad. Like, it's that you're like, oh, the happy person, the happy-go-lucky person got mad. Now you're serious.
It's always the quiet ones you really got to be worried about, because it's in that quiet anger and intensity. And I think, again, reading too much into this, talking about professional wrestling and combat sports, I know, but it's because in that quietness of Bailey that I think is where he's most deadly, because there were bits and pieces I was looking at facial expressions and eye movements too. Mike Bailey was being calculated in everything that he did in this match too, looking for weak spots and, openings. And honestly, he succeeded in what ended up getting him the win here is he saw the opening and he took it.
Yeah.
And we could talk about this forever. I know we should move on, but and Andrew's good at calling this stuff out too. Former martial artists who go into professional wrestling in some way, and you watch the whole match going, he could kill you right now. He could kill you right now. He could knock you out right now if he wanted to. He could destroy you. He chose not to, right? It's just that feeling with humble, quiet guys like Mike Bailey, where they're smiling, but it's like at any moment you could rip my arms off.
Well, and speaking of that, we got another former could probably kill you in a fight if he wanted to. Former UFC fighter.
Look at that photo,
MMA
Jesus.
Fighter. Yeah, it's like a baby Brock Lesnar, and current version of Ken Shamrock. But we got Brutus Creed, Julius's brother of NXT and WWE. Roster versus Tom Lawler, who has shown up in every place from New Japan, AEW, Ring of Honor, GCW, MLW. He's just all over the place. Former professional mixed martial artist. So Mikey, we got the second Creed brother here against a kind of a veteran at this point, I think, and Tom Lawler, and both, from professional fighting and professional wrestling. This was a change up from the last match. The last match was a little crazy scramble with a lot of striking and stuff like this. This was much more of a grappler's match. And what'd you think about Brutus's introduction into the world of Bloodsport?
So I want to preface by saying I don't think there was a single match on Bloodsport that I thought was like inherently bad. There were definitely some stronger ones and some weaker ones. And unfortunately, this was one of the weaker ones for me. Not because I thought it was bad visually, but the two things that I noticed during this match too, because as you mentioned, Brutus and Julius are still new to taking that, collegiate style of wrestling and applying it into the lens of professional wrestling. So completely different. Whereas Julius succeeded in that tonight, I feel that Brutus, the two things I noticed is that Brutus, for me, I caught him thinking a lot about where to go, and he was kind of unsure of himself. And also, too, between the two, Brutus does have more of the power because he has a bigger and stronger frame. So I saw him thinking about where to go, and also kind of being more reserved, which is a weird thing to see because in NXT and WWE, I'm used to seeing him go all out and do all these crazy stuff. But then again, here, because it was more ground-based, he was unsure of himself, which was kind of weird. And I don't know if that's because he was going up against someone who is an actual veteran of this sport in Filthy Tom Lawler. That was that. But then on top, so those were the two things. I also felt that, and I also saw that I think what made this not my favorite as well is that I can tell there were certain transitions where Lawler definitely led Brutus.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
A good chunk of the spots too. I still thought it was fantastic. Lawler is a clown and I love him to death. His entrance alone was just like, okay, like this is going to be fun. I kind of want a little bit more. This wasn't a bad match, but this was definitely on the weaker side to me. And it's unfortunate because Brutus was more insecure. Is not the word I want to use, but he was very unsure of himself, which is kind of a weird thing to see. But I still thought it was a fine match. It wasn't bad. It's just, it was a little underwhelming for me.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely agree with you there. This was one of the lower ranked matches for me. It had some rough spots, and I think Crossway, you're more familiar with Tom Lawler probably from his UFC Ultimate Fighter TV show days. I don't know how much you've seen of him in professional wrestling, but what did you think about this showdown between the two of them?
Yeah, so I knew he was wrestling somewhere. I didn't know he was still wrestling. So yeah, he's a veteran. He must have been doing it for a while. Since me trying to remember. I agree with Mikey. I think there were a few spots here where Lawler got there first in the spot, and Creed was sort of trying to catch up. Like, oh yeah, we're here. Oh yeah, we're here. I don't want to impose. I'm not sure. It looks like Creed goes for that single leg 3 times in a row, which tells me that might have been a spot that they were trying to plan for, And then there was a part where he got out of it, and then he goes to the turnbuckle and jumps off of it. So I'm not sure if he forgot that spot or what. I don't know. Lawler I just feel like he's just a foot short of telling him, come here, come at me, come here. Like, come on. So Brutus is a little in his head for sure. There's a boxing segment here at the second half of this where Lawler's just laying hands, bam, hard. Like, come on, trying to get Brutus to go to the next spot, whatever it is. I don't know if Brutus was gassed or it felt like there was something we weren't privy to here. Could be anything. And again, if this is all we saw, or if this was the first match, I still would have been excited. I still would have gone, oh damn, GCW is different. I like this new thing I'm watching. Compared to everything else we saw, yeah, now I could see sort of the cracks in kayfabe. It was sort of, okay, we're calling a spot to here, we're calling a spot to there, we're hesitating there, we're working on this, working on that. Creed's still a beast, and Lawler still gets him up and over a few times. There's some stuff in here. So, and Creed's relatively new to wrestling, pro wrestling like this, right? We know he's a collegiate guy.
Yeah,
that kind of guy.
Yeah, him and his brother did wrestling in college, but
it
formulating in the entertainment aspect of professional wrestling.
It seems like his brother's got a little more polish on him. His brother's got a little more. I can keep up with the spots. It seems like he's just.
That's kind of the story too in NXT and WWE, that Julius is kind of the more polished of the two.
Sure.
I would say it feels like Julius is a little more natural at the world of professional wrestling.
Sure.
And it felt like Brutus was almost a little nervous, a little unsure going into this match, because it was at the very beginning. He just seemed to have a different energy than, his brother did in some of the other performances.
He hits a stride the last 2-3 minutes of this. Like, it seems like Lawler slaps him out of it a little, and they kind of get back on track some. But yeah, he seemed hesitant. Not sure what that's about.
All in all, it was a solid match between the two of them, and Brutus Creed still manages to pick up the victory, getting a technical knockout. Actually pulled out a very similar finish to his brother. Seems to be their go-to finish for these Bloodsport events. So maybe we'll see them again and see how they kind of improve next time around. But after this, we move to another big hyped match of the night. One I know Mikey I think this was the match that pushed it over the edge for Mikey. It was Mike Bailey, and this match being on this card that made Mikey want to watch this was Mike Santana, currently of TNA, formerly of many other places, taking on Homicide. So we had kind of two generations of LAX taking on each other here in this one-on-one competition. And so Mikey, why don't you start us off and tell us what you thought about Mike Santana versus Homicide, especially in this unique scenario of a match.
Okay, so I'm probably going to catch some heat for saying this. Again, there were some weaker matches on this. The match that we talked about previously was weaker, but this was my least favorite match, unfortunately. And it's not because of Mike Santana. I thought Santana did great. But the best way I could describe this match, I'm like, Homicide reminded me of my crazy uncle in New York who is Puerto Rican, and it's just like he's just scrapping to scrap, and he kind of got way too into it. I was like, sir, who left their crazy uncle in here? Somebody come get him. Homicide was kind of all over the place in terms of intensity and energy. I don't know if he was trying to go for the crazy mad look here, but he somewhat succeeded, but not in a way that was beneficial to the overall match. Because again, it felt like Homicide blacked out for a little bit in certain parts of this, and just he forgot that he was in a combat wrestling match. And then I was like, sir, we are not on the streets of New York. We need to take it down a couple of notches. I was waiting for him to pull out a switchblade and everything. He was fighting for his life. Which is unfortunate because Mike Santana's over here trying to make it work, but even Mike Santana's like, bro, what are you doing? What is happening? I don't understand. I was so let down by this match. I feel like Mike Santana carried a lot of this match for me, and that might be my personal bias because I like Mike Santana a lot. but I wanted more from this. And I know Homicide is capable of so much more than what we got, but it felt like a crazy uncle was left on the loose and Mike Santana pulled the short straw of the family and had to go collect him and bring him back inside the house.
Mike, your uncle's out. Your uncle's out there. He said too much. Go get him.
And Mike's like, oh, damn it, not again. This is my most. I was severely let down by this match. Again, it wasn't super bad. I had to get it a D or an F, but this was the weakest match to me, and that is on Homicide's part, unfortunately.
I'm glad you said it. I was thinking the same thing. I think this match should have been on a regular GCW event.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say this felt like a normal pro wrestling match compared to everything we saw up until this point, right? It felt a little shticky. It felt a little. They were hesitating at times, and we can see it. And they had nothing to max it. Like, I wonder. There's a few times here it looks like Homicide forgets there's ropes in the ring. Like he sort of reaches or sort of moves and realizes, oh, there's nothing there, sort of thing. In all reality, Santana could have won this in the first 30 seconds. If he doesn't let go of that armbar, it's over. Like he's already beat him. So I didn't hate this. Homicide does that weird forearm thing on the ear, which is just an older brother, I'm being a jerk to you thing, which is, fine. But he's also a pro wrestler. Hit him in the face. Like, do something. One of the weaker matches, but still, I did not hate it, right? Like, compared to everything else, it's like, yeah, this one stands out as a little clunky. Not quite there. They're trying to, about halfway through this, they're trying to call their spots and communicate, but the audience is right on top of them. So they're trying not to give it away. But I think they got a little lost about halfway through this, and then they kind of had to work their way back to the ending.
Yeah, this was an unfortunate one for me. Like I said, I think this could have benefited from being on a GCW card somewhere else, because then we could have incorporated weapons and all kinds of stuff that would have lent towards Homicide's strengths.
Sure.
Which is also surprising because this was the second longest match of the night.
Was it really? Wow.
Yeah, it was, which is crazy because the longest match of the night was also one of my less favorite matches, but we'll get to that one later. Next, we had a match that I was actually surprised wasn't in the co-main event position, which was the namesake of this sport or this card itself was Josh Barnett taking on TMDK's Bad Dude Tito, who is also showing up all over the place. Mikey, what did you think about this match?
So again, as I said, Bad Dude Tito has been all over the world right now. He's part of one of my favorite factions in New Japan with, Zack Sabre Jr. and TMDK. Also, Mikey Nichols and Shane Hayes. The four of them are all fantastic. Che Guevara as well. Bad Dude Tito, call me. But yeah, he's New Japan. He's been in CMLL a lot. Mm-hmm. In fact, he was part of their Fantastica Mania pay-per-view, a couple weeks ago with CMLL in New Japan, which was a really fun show. The best way that I could describe this match, and I actually enjoyed it, you have Bad Dude Tito, who has the body of a demigod. It is demigod versus dad bod in this situation too. Because Josh Barnett looked like there were two places when I saw his outfit, when he walked out, I was like, there are two places that Josh Barnett just came from. He either walked out as an extra to Sons of Anarchy. The other thing too, I was just like, I didn't know it was still Pride Month. What in the leather is this? Like
that Judas Priest look.
Yes, but I was here for it regardless. Also because he's white, he has that white man sweat. I was just like literally before the match even started, I'm like, sir, you are pouring buckets. Like, what happened?
Yeah, they probably don't got very good AC in that opera house they're in.
No, but all joking aside, I know Josh Barnett could probably kill me if he wanted to in a fight, so I'm not trying to pick a fight with him. I actually really enjoyed this match a lot more, and we didn't even know this was going to be on here until the day of. I was just like, squeeze me? But I thought this was a lot of fun. Again, this is really my first time seeing Bad Dude Tito, like actual ground-to-ground wrestling, because I'm used to him just being the power lifter of TMDK. And when he's teamed with Che Guevara as the Wolf Zaddies, they also incorporate elements of aerial combat as well. So it was really cool to see him. I'm like, Bad Dude Tito's power lifting is nuts to me. The fact that he was able to lift Josh Barnett seamlessly in some of these spots was impressive to me. And you know what? Normally I have an issue if your name is on the pay-per-view and you pull out a win on said pay-per-view. Sometimes I have an issue with it because I'm like, really? I know your name is on it, but does it have to win? But this is one of the few instances where I was like, you know what? Josh Barnett earned this victory because Tito did not let up either. And you know what? My jokes aside about the dad bod of him, sweating buckets throughout this match, I really can see why Shayna Baszler loves Josh Barnett. I was like, oh yeah, this man is great. And though he looks like he's a lot older than he is, because I was shocked when we looked up his age during the watch along. I was like, sir, how are you in your 40s? You look like you can be my grandpa. Like,
he's 2 years older than Andrew.
It is wild to me,
Andrew
bro.
has looked the same the last 20 years I've known him. Josh Barnett looks 150 years old.
It's that Samoan blood in Andrew.
He's had a life.
He's Josh Barnett the White. Like, dude died and came back 1,000 years of
Josh
man.
Barnett, the way he looked tonight during Bloodsport is like how I looked at Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler. I'm just like, life happened, things went down. Like, this man had lived. I was just like, it's wild. But again, all joking aside, I actually really enjoyed this match.
And I will say, Josh Barnett has had a full career as an MMA fighter and a full career as a professional wrestler. So
he's 46. He fought for 20 years. He's only 46, and he retired years ago. Like, that should tell you the life he's had.
I'm telling you, white people, man, they age weirdly.
Yeah.
Well, and to be fair, Josh Barnett's pretty much he's always on these cards. He always shows up. He's usually in the main event, which credit to the fact that we get a main event. It's actually the first women's main event in a Bloodsport event ever. But he does lose quite a bit in Bloodsport, which I appreciate. And I've never felt in the matches that I've seen of Josh Barnett in Bloodsport that he's putting himself over at the cost of other people that he's facing.
Sure.
Which it does give me a bit of respect for him as a professional wrestler, and especially in this being his like kind of home territory. And what did you think about this Crosswade of getting to see Josh Barnett in wrestling action?
I love it. I'm an MMA nerd. I remember watching UFC DVDs with Josh Barnett on them in the late 90s, renting those and having to get your parent to say, yeah, go ahead. So I've been a fan, or I have known of Josh Barnett forever. I love what he's done in Japan for pro wrestling. He created a whole dojo at one point, which has kind of evolved into a bunch of other things. He's given other wrestlers a spot. This felt like a Josh Barnett fight. If you ever watched his MMA matches, they turn into wrestling matches. He gets into the ground and pound, or he kind of gets accidentally knocked out, but we're not going to talk about those matches in his career. He would overwhelm you and then kind of make mistakes, or you'd catch him. And this was a wrestling match. Tito was great. I don't know anything about Tito other than he could lift up a house, apparently. I could see how, I'm going to say this. I could see how a casual, not that I'm better than a casual, but I could see how someone who's used to watching other promotions could get bored to death watching this. Me, I'm watching Olympic judo and Olympic wrestling all day on my NBC3 live ESPN 8 the Ocho, right? So for someone who watches stuff like that, I love this. There's a section here near the end where Josh Barnett goes full ground and pound, and it's like, don't kill him. Don't kill him. No. Like, he can just take his arms off and destroy him. Again, this was fun to watch. I mean, this is just slapping man meat and getting up close and personal, pure white dude sweat, big angry Viking with the Iceland tattoo. Like, this is just two ogres fighting over bread and cheese. It's great. I love it.
Well, speaking of ogres too, somebody who is also really built made an appearance at the end of this match too, which I think we should mention as well.
Yes.
Because
we got a special appearance by formerly MVP
Montavious.
Go ahead, tell us about it, Mikey. What did you think about this surprise appearance? Because I don't think you were expecting this to happen.
So, funny enough, the day before we watched Bloodsport, I did get fact that WWE on the internal roster had removed Omos, MVP, and Tamina Snuka from the pages. So that means to tell me contracts are probably coming up,
Wait.
and they're probably not going to re-sign them.
They released Omos?
Well, they removed him from internal roster. There's no creative plans for him, but that's besides the point.
Oh, please put Omos in Bloodsport. Could you imagine him just getting mauled by Josh Barnett? Ah!
See, Professor, I'm going to tell you the same thing that I told you when you thought that the learning tree in AEW was a good idea. It's not.
I didn't say the learning tree was a good idea. I just love Large William being a dumbass. It's so good.
But MVP, gets on the mic, and he basically says that his contract with WWE is up. He's not re-signing with them, so now he's technically a free agent. And he wants a match against Josh Barnett, because I also forget that MVP has a black belt in martial arts too. I'm like, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
A double black belt, I think he
Woof.
said. Yeah, double black, which is kind of crazy. But
Really?
And again,
where? Do you know under who, Andrew? Is that?
I think it might be the Gracies.
He's a Gracie. Oh, don't. Touch
every time
that
I
man.
see MVP, training martial arts, I also see like Karrion Kross and Shinsuke Nakamura like be training with him too, which is now Shinsuke in this would be nuts. Like,
Yes.
Shinsuke would just be like returning home. Like,
for real, so it would be so good. But
wow, that's
yeah,
wild.
so MVP wants a match at Bloodsport, and Josh Barnett grants it anytime, anywhere through the multiple that he
Poor guy.
has to do.
I still hate promos after matches, but that's me for talking about other stuff.
But I'm excited to see MVP in this, and if he wants to be in GCW too, like on the actual wrestling GCW events, I'm here for it. I think it's fantastic. It truly is a fun time to be a wrestling fan.
Yeah, I think we kind of talked about it. We kind of talked about it a bit when we were watching this. It feels like this is, and GCW is kind of, I don't want to say the epitome of this, but they just have the freedom to be more flexible with this.
Sure.
We're at a point where crossovers and cross promotions are at a place where we've never really seen them, because for so long the big company was forcing the industry to be in a situation where it was like, you don't cross lines.
Right.
We don't talk about other people. We don't do these things. But now,
Remember-
we've got TNA. and
Remember,
NXT
we had
crossing over.
WWE talent get fired for accidentally being shown on a mid 2000 TNA taping episode.
I mean, that territorial
So we've
stuff
got-
is ingrained in professional wrestling from its
Yeah.
get-go. And it's only the last 5 years, 4 years, maybe, we've started to chip away at that. Oof, it goes deep.
You were asking earlier, Crossway. It's Gracie Barra is where he trains.
He's in a Gracie Barra
Texas.
out of Chicago?
Yeah.
Damn. Wow.
No, Texas.
Texas Gracie Barra? Okay. Nice.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think, we're just seeing
Wow.
what this could really be with all the crossover promotions. We got to see it here with so many different people from all over, and I think we're seeing it continuing, and it's only better for the performers and for us as fans, and reviewers and everything. It's bringing so much better quality to professional wrestling, and I think more unity as a sport and a form of entertainment.
Mhm.
We move on from this. Josh Barnett picks up the victory of technical knockout over Bad Dude Tito to another bit of a crossover match. We get someone from ROH and AEW. We get Josh Woods taking on Timothy Thatcher. This on paper was gonna be a brutal match. I think they had it that way, and I was a bit surprised by the outcome. But what did you all think about this, Mikey? Mikey, let's see you shaking your head. What did you think about this match?
I had the last 48 hours to kind of sit and ponder with this. I wasn't mad at the double count out. I was just disappointed because I didn't feel like we were just getting to the crescendo before the ultimate, let's beat each other up. And then the double count out happened. I was like, well, that happened. That's a bummer, but it's life, I guess. Say what you will. When I saw this on the card, I lost my proverbial mind, so to speak, because I love Joshua Woods. I know what he's capable of. I still think he should be pure champion, but that's neither here nor there. That's for a different show. But Josh is really good in the ring. Really good. And like, I put my stake as a wrestling fan and as a reviewer, like, on the line when I say this. There is not, outside of Mr. Brian Bryanson, I think outside of him, the best modern day technicians, in my opinion, who can probably fight each other to take Danielson's spot when he retires in terms of technical wrestling wise, is Zack Sabre Jr. and Josh Woods. I put these two men on the pedestal when it comes to technical wrestling, because Josh is phenomenal. But on the other side, you also have a very phenomenal catch can wrestler in Timothy Thatcher. Like, say what you will about Matt Riddle's antics when he was in NXT and WWE and the stuff that's happening, with drug problems and everything. But when Timothy Thatcher and Matthew Riddle had their feud in NXT, that was amazing. And this was still this was towards the end of the Black and Gold era. We had a Lions Pit match between Timothy Thatcher and Matt Riddle, and that was phenomenal. And I was like, oh, Timothy Thatcher is great. And then what was it? Like months later, they're like, we released Timothy Thatcher. What? I was so upset. I've never forgiven WWE for that one. So when I saw that these two were about to go at it, I was super happy. And I was really happy with what we got. It's just the double count. I was like, oh, we kind of stopped the momentum. That's a bummer for sure. But outside of that little moment, this was at the top of my top 3-4 for me, because of just how, all right, well, let's just beat the piss out of each other. Let's just do it. So up until the double count out spot, this was on track to be, oh my gosh, I'm about to witness magic in front of my eyes. And we kind of did a little bit. I just wish that the double count out didn't happen.
I agree. I agree with that. Crossfit, what did you think about this match?
Yeah, I'm nodding my head over here. I agree with a lot of everything Mikey just said. I wish I knew more of Josh Woods. I'm excited to learn more about him now, which is always nice to watch these events and learn about new folks. The first half of this felt like a pancrase match, old school shin guards on top of each other, palm strike stuff, trying to get from this transition to that transition before they stand me up type of thing. So it had that flair to it. I would love to see Thatcher and an AEW in some of these promotions that have catch guys and guys that do this stuff. Him in a Blackpool Combat Club fighting someone like Claudio. Like, that would just be violent.
Well, even in a Ring of Honor sense, him versus our new pure champion, Lee Moriarty, would be fantastic.
Sure. His style is very... I don't mean raw like unrefined. I mean raw like mano y mano. Let's go.
You're gonna have to earn that victory. I mean,
yeah, dude's
he
missing it.
He's missing teeth.
Got none beard, huge beard, like none. Like, dude's fantastic looking.
Tall and lanky at that too. I'm like, this man's limbs are long.
I could see why old man Vince let him go, because that's not his thing. But this guy is super talented, and you could see it. I agree. The double count out is kind of an interesting ending. I'm not sure why we went there, especially because these two are fighting. Like, they're pushing each other. I don't think they got to where they wanted to go. Part of me thinks that they messed something up somewhere. I could be crazy. But if this was your main event, if this was your 30-minute whatever, it would have been incredible. Could have been one of those, but still really great.
Well, don't worry, Crossweight. Josh Woods is a Ring of Honor talent, so that means you get to see plenty of times of him losing on AEW.
I can't wait to watch Dynamite to watch Josh Woods lose.
I mean, technically, we saw that. Well, it was more on Collision. It's either Collision. Collision is where they do most of the losing, because our ROH folks always lose on AEW programming, which sucks.
So that was just a little spillover bitterness from yesterday. I agree with you. This ended in a double count out. I kind of get what they were going for, but either it didn't have the proper setup to really invest us in that, or it didn't really like culminate enough in the way that I saw what they were trying to sell, but I just didn't buy it.
Sure.
And that's unfortunate because, like you've all said, like that these two could have given us a finish that would have been phenomenal. And hell, I say next Bloodsport, run it back again. We had a double count out. It's a perfectly good reason to have them go and just let them do it again and give them a proper finish. But that was our semi-main event of the evening. We moved on to our main event, which was the first ever women's main event in a Bloodsport event. Was Shayna Baszler versus Miyu Yamashita. This was the match that when I saw it, this really got me really excited for this. I remember watching Shayna Baszler in MMA, and I think you all can tell me if I'm wrong in this, but I think she is one of the best successful former professional MMA fighters to go into professional wrestling. And it's funny because she wasn't as successful in MMA as some of the people who went over, but she outshines them in professional wrestling.
Like she's the top, like she's the most successful.
I don't know if I would say the most successful. Partially, I think part of that is because how she's been booked. Had she continued how she did in NXT into the main roster, yes, I would say
sure.
But there are people who were more successful in MMA and more famous who came into professional wrestling and did not make the transition like she has made.
I would agree. Yeah. I think she has done the proper blueprint for what you need to do this. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's other names. We all know those other names and how they burned their bridges and how they did not help and how they made certain things worse before they made other things. But the way Shayna Baszler has done it has been fantastic. She got screwed by booking, which is a shame. But I totally agree.
But I think her being a student of Josh Barnett and really respecting the sport of professional wrestling, I think definitely helped. But in this, she also got a phenomenal opponent to go against in Yamashita. And I feel like, Mikey, you were pretty excited to see this. You especially knowing a lot of the wrestling stars, especially from places like Stardom, DDT, some of those other Japanese and Asian promotions that we get to see glimpses of a lot more like we do in these crossovers. And obviously, Shayna from NXT, WWE, and following those. Did this live up to your expectations, both as the main event for your first Bloodsport and as a Shayna Baszler versus Miyu Yamashita match?
So I definitely will say for maybe the first 60% of this match, I felt that it was more one-sided because it was Shayna being dominant. Mm-hmm. But Miyu got some offense in, and then it became more even as we got to the end. But I ended up really enjoying this match for a variety of different reasons. The inaction was great. I loved what we got in terms of the hand-to-hand combat kind of stuff. Again, Miyu is one of those names that a lot of people who are in the Joshi wrestling scene know of, but don't know her too well in the sense because her style is very unorthodox. But she definitely, I think, has the potential to become a bigger name in the Joshi wrestling scene, especially because she's able to combine the more strong striker style that is what we mostly know as strong style of wrestling in Japan, but she's also very fast and agile and acrobatic too. Hell, we saw clips of her pulling off like crazy moves in the promo package leading into this match, so she can do both. And again, this is not the first time that me and Andrew are familiar with Miyu because we have seen her also make crossovers in TNA as well. In fact, she fought Jordan for the title at some point during the spring, which was, for a lot of fun too.
She's also fought Athena for the Ring of Honor.
Exactly. And that match was also fantastic too. And it kind of helps when she's had mentors like Io Shirai and Asuka to kind of, guide her through that as well. So she's in capable hands. But Miss Shayna Baszler, ma'am, let's talk, girl, because I have always been a Shayna Baszler fan since day one when she made her debut in NXT, and she was treated as such a monster in the black and gold era of NXT. And when she made the transition to main roster and they fumbled the bag with her so badly that in interviews, Shayna contemplated quitting because not that she couldn't take the criticism, but just because of how Shawn Michaels and Triple H handled her versus Vincent Kennedy McMahon on the main roster was totally not cool. And it disheartened me, and it disheartened Shayna. Now, granted, I think that I'm glad she didn't quit because I love seeing her. But when she came on main roster, like, we're just coming out to the light at the end of the tunnel of how hard Shayna has had to build herself back up, not because of her own fault, but because of everything that was mishandled with her.
Yeah.
And now we're finally getting to a place where I think Shayna is starting to finally get back some of that edge she had in NXT Black and Gold. Now, granted, she's in a faction now with Sonya Deville, another MMA turned wrestler who is also fantastic in her own right, which is great. But in this match particular, knowing all this and seeing the frustrations and the journey of Shayna to come to this point, and I definitely want to talk about it once we're done with the match, of her promo at the end of this. Like, she is proud to be a student of Josh Barnett, and she is proud that in 2024, as you mentioned earlier, Andrew, that you have stars from all these different promotions coming together for the one thing they love, and that is professional wrestling. I got a kick out of all of the faces that Shayna made to the camera, breaking the fourth wall. She's like, really? This girl's about to do this? Really? Like, her face game is so funny to watch. And that, again, gives me shades of Black and Gold Shayna Baszler when she look at the hard cam and just like, really? Oh, I'm about to break this girl's arm. Or I'm about to kick her face in. I love this. It warmed my little heart, and this was definitely in my top 3 of the night, just because I can feel how much Shayna Baszler loves doing this, and it made me love this match even more.
What did you think about this match, Crossway? What did you think about this main event?
I'm a few things. I wish I saw Black and Gold Shayna Baszler, because my introduction with Shayna Baszler was bad booking and coming in way too late into her career with the big promotion.
We also don't talk about that SummerSlam fight. Oh, it was so bad.
That match with Ronda Rousey on her way out was just awful.
Bad.
And I'm not sure who booked that or why or what. I'm not sure if there was a falling out between her and Ronda. That's something else we could talk about another time. This is where she shines, is this kind of stuff. When I'm going to work strong, I'm going to work hard with you, I'm going to play to my skill set, and we're going to throw down and make it look real. We're not making this look carnival or spectacle. We're going to fight here. I agree with everything that Mikey said. I love those winks at the audience. She's got a certain style and character to her. There's a charisma, riz, as the kids say, that she kind of has. But she puts on the tough,
like the crackers.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Will you buy a box of charisma? Yeah. Again, this is another match where if Shayna Baszler's obviously trying not to kill Miyu. Like, there's just moments where it's like, oh, she would have murdered you. I liked watching Miyu too. Like, I was very impressed in watching what she was doing and how these were going through this match too. Echoing kind of everything Mikey said, I'm still shocked. This was only 10 minutes, guys. This was one of the shorter matches of the night. It clocked in just under 10, I want to say, and then we have the promo at the end. So they got a lot out of this. Granted, I'm glad this wasn't like another promotion where they book 8 hours worth of matches and then it takes us forever to promote it, to review it. I want to see more from Shayna Baszler. I hope it sounds like she's coming back here to GCW all the time. I'm not saying we'll talk about the promo in a second, but I'll echo what Mikey said. This match and wrestlers like her echo how important it was that Josh Barnett did what Josh Barnett did 15-ish years ago, starting a dojo, starting pro wrestling stuff, and pushing for folks, giving an opportunity to MMA folks who didn't have a career plan, who probably didn't go to college, or didn't have anything other than, I'm going to go open a gym when I retire. Yeah, you and 30 other people, 40, 50, 100 others, right? This is great. And I'm not calling out any spots because I start watching it and I enjoy it. So there's no notes, right?
This This I'm not as familiar with Miyu. I've seen her a couple of times. But I will say this, especially we've gotten to see, especially Stardom come over into Ring of Honor. That Mikey and I cover.
They have my
And
best match of 2024 so far. I'm just saying.
yeah, seeing them come over and seeing them work together and then go against other professional wrestlers. It's similar to the wrestlers that come up from Mexico and Lucha Libre. There's certain people who can work with them and excel and like really highlight what they do. And I think you've got people like Shanna, and I think part of it is working with people like Josh Barnett. You have people who've trained in Japan and learned that style. And I think when you get people that can understand that and speak that language to each other in the ring, you get really fun matches. And I think that's what we got between the two of them, because we all know, or at least most people know, the legitimacy of someone like a Shayna Baszler. We've got the Olympics going on right now. The worst Olympian is still a better athlete than most of the people going around.
Thank you for saying what you just said. Keep going.
The people who are professional fighters make it into an actual professional fighting career are people who can legitimately beat the crap out of most people.
The worst fighter in the UFC, the bottom fighter, could beat the hell out of you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And so we know that with Shayna Baszler. So the fact that we have a match that we see as believable, competitive and that kind of stuff, it keeps us in this world. And I think that was something for Bloodsport that they do a really good job of, is they keep that believability of professional wrestling going while even going into other worlds like this. I loved this match. I thought it was a great match. Awesome for both of them to be in this main event position. And, we've talked about it a little bit here. Shayna gets on the mic again. She talks a little bit right before everything started. They do a lineup at the beginning of the night with all the fighters. At the end of the night, Shayna got the mic and she talked about, what this all meant to her. And for me, recently really delving into the GCW world, it's made me appreciate what they do with what they have. And, I say it on the other reviews, I appreciate when I see people doing this that genuinely love it and enjoy doing what they're doing. And for me, hearing Shayna talk about this, it felt so genuine. It felt so real. Like whether she had written this out and it was scripted, it felt like she was actually saying what she meant. And even though it was a small crowd compared to what she's getting when she goes back to work for her main job, they had that energy that they felt, that they appreciated her being there and saying what she was saying. And I don't know about for the two of you, this was just like a great cap for the night, and continues me being a fan of GCW. How did this leave you for a way to end? I know, Mikey, we see this kind of thing similar in TNA a bit, especially with Eric Young. As we go into our final thoughts, how did this cap off the night with you, with Shayna Baszler making this impassioned speech?
So I'll give this speech, and then I'll also give my final rating too, because it was like, it definitely was a good way to cap off the event. It was this nice 2.5 hours of getting to watch this. And I like, the funny thing is by most pay-per-views, I'm like, oh, thank goodness that was over. But by the end of this, when we were done and we kind of talked for a little bit, I was like, no, don't end. Give me like 10 more minutes. Give me like 15 more minutes. Like, I want to see more. And I think that's a testament of, literally throwing open the door and bringing whoever they can into this, because you had wrestlers from WWE, New Japan, DDT, TNA, like all these different promotions, Stardom, they are being represented here in something that doesn't necessarily get seen a lot. And, Shayna kind of talking about this and thanking Josh Barnett for having this opportunity for wrestlers to come in and to do this kind of stuff. Literally was a fantastic way, and it made me love this event even more. And by the end of this, when we were done and we signed off and I sat there, I was like, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid that Andrew has been trying to get me to drink for the longest time. And this is the combat sports element of GCW. I know what the wrestling the standard professional wrestling GCW is like, because the clips that Andrew sent me are fantastic. But, you know, this to me was such a brand new opportunity to expand my worldview of wrestling. And I'm a fan. I cannot wait to see when the next Bloodsport's going to be, who's going to be on it. And I'm here for it. And honestly, just by the end of it, while some matches were weaker than others, there was a very strong card. So I give this like a solid B for me. This was a solid B show. I do wish that what really brought it down for me was the Homicide and Mike Santana match, which is super disappointing for me because I'm a huge fan of Mike Santana and Homicide. But other than that, even the two weakest matches that I talked about, everything else was really good too. Oh my God, I need to see your rematch. Get this to me now. But yeah, this was fantastic. I really enjoyed this. So I give Bloodsport a B for this one.
Awesome. We'll move on to you, Crossway. What did you think about this ending speech, and what was your overall thoughts of this card and your final grade?
I'm not a fan of promos after matches. They never go well. I say this every week somewhere because it always tends to turn into so that drives me nuts. But I love seeing someone speak from the heart after doing something incredibly vulnerable and emotional in front of others. And actually, I think she kind of nailed this promo, even if it's right after a match like that. Saying thanks to Josh and what Josh has done for others, which I already kind of mentioned. I'll take this macro, then I'll bring it back to GCW. It seems like every mainline entertainment industry has some sort of beating heart underneath it, right? If you look at Broadway, the beating heart of the theater is in not New York. It's in places like Chicago, Atlanta, Vancouver, San Francisco, where there's theater and actors and the working class folks are working. The same is with film. Yes, it's Los Angeles, but it's also Austin, Seattle, these indie film places. There's the stuff underneath where people are doing the 9-to-5 working class stuff. And that's how this feels. This feels like I'm looking at the place where people are putting in the work and the time. They're in the trenches doing the real shit. Let's be honest. And I'm not saying that other promotions aren't. I'm saying that this is a place where they're cutting their teeth and they're doing the raw, pure work to get over, to do the things, to take the risks. And something like Bloodsport is fascinating for someone like me who's followed martial arts forever, is getting falling more and more in love with that strong style Japanese stuff. This is right in my alley right now. This was so much fun. I'm excited to see there are other cards live and go rewatch some of it now that I have a subscription. That I'll hang on to it. Sure, fine, whatever. I won't cancel it in 7 days. I'll watch some stuff. Sure. I'm used to scales out of 1 to 10. You're asking me to grade this? Ooh, this is in, B plus A minus land, 88, 89, 90. Like I'm right there and like right in that wheelhouse for that. I know this is a one-off of what they normally do. But for me, this is much more my style, my speed. I do kind of miss some high-flying stuff. I do kind of miss some of what I'm used to. However, what I made up for it, I watched a man get knocked out just because. That was great. Like, that makes me happy. And then, like I said at the very beginning of this gave me flashbacks of watching Pancrase and K1 kickboxing at 1 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. And that same feeling of like, oh my God, I'm watching an event. I'm watching something athletic and violent and fun. It's a blast.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I was so happy to have you both join me for this. Speaking of, we have some more events coming up. GCW seems to never sleep. They've got Now and Forever this Friday. And they have Can I Trust You on Sunday, which will have some huge matches. If you've been following along with GCW, we'll get to see the 3 competitors in the triple threat match for the world title pick their poison matches, as well as the GCW debut of the Maharaja Raj Desi taking on Effie on
That's
Friday
so
and
great.
taking on Mike Bailey on Sunday. So yeah, it's GCW's got it coming at you. So if you want to see what GCW normally does, you can turn in those 2 days. As far as Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 11, I gave it a B+. You can see all my individual match gradings on the report card on our social media, and you'll see my report cards come out later this weekend for the upcoming events as well. But I had a great time getting to watch Bloodsport with both of you and getting to review it again. I am so excited to get to actually watch some traditional GCW with you all as well. And I look forward to hearing about what you all think about some of these new performers that you've been exposed to, getting to see from all these different companies as well, because there's quite a few that I enjoy that I'm happy to see them get the recognition and the viewership that I think they deserve. So,
and it makes me pull for them, right? There's a sense of like, oh, damn, I want to you. I know what you're capable of. Give them the money. Let's go.
But with that all said, I think that brings us to the end of our first ever live review of a GCW production. I'm so happy to have this be part of the Bi-Conics, envelope.
Bi-Conics?
The Bi-Conics.
The Bi-Conics coming to you from Kenosha.
Envelope of professional wrestling as we expand and find new and wonderful things. I appreciate it very much, Mikey, for letting me bring this in. So yeah, with that said, Mikey, I'll let you give us our traditional send out as we head off, and we'll see you all for the reviews heading up later this week.
Oh, definitely. So a little bit of housekeeping before the sign off. We will be back to regular scheduled programming, kind of. We have ROH and TNA this upcoming Friday. We have a SummerSlam review next week, which is going to be very fun and interesting. The WWE boys got this. And if it wasn't announced before during the watch along or here, this is not the last time you will see GCW, because we won't be taking a big long break from it too long, because we are going to be covering GCW Homecoming, one of their bigger pay-per-views, 2 nights crammed into one review. It's about to be nuts. I'm excited for that ladder match. It's about to get on and popping. But that is going to be it for us here at Grapple Gurus Review. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up, so make sure that you keep it there. Also, if you enjoyed what we did here, and if you are like, hey, I didn't know they were covering GCW, or you want us to check out some other stuff, make sure to leave a comment below this video or on our social media feeds, because we want to engage. So don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, as the kids say, by hitting the subscribe and bell notification on the YouTubes, and follow us all over the social medias and Twitch. We're trying to brand this out to as many people as possible. So, from all of us here at BC Wrestle Pod, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We will catch you later this week for more programming, but until then, sayonara, adios, and we'll see you later. Ta-ta for now.